There. Today, I want to share a few embodied decision-making tools that I have found really helpful in going from trying to figure things out in my mind or doing pro-con lists for making a decision to something where it's just much more embodied and intuitive. So, this is what happened. I have been looking for a place to land over the next few months since I have to leave my place. And I stumbled upon a little cabin in this beautiful, magical property. The land has a creek and a spring. It has these trees, these two trees that are like growing together. And around them are these big crystal rocks that the owner told me were underneath all the overgrowth when she bought the land 35 years ago. And a Cherokee elder told her that it precedes the Cherokee, and she thinks it's something galactic. And even just being around those crystals and the trees and the spring, I could feel the energy of this place. And in so many ways, that's what I'm really wanting, is to be connected to the land and to be on a beautiful property. And the cabin was rustic. It wasn't something that I necessarily would have chosen, but it was sufficient, and it was really the land that made up for it. But even so, I found myself just really not getting an internal yes. So I told her that I wanted to think about it, and I would get back to her the next day. And I talked to some friends that night, and they were asking me questions. And after talking to them, I was feeling more and more like I wanted to go ahead and take it, just for 3 months. And I went to sleep that night, and I woke up, and I just didn't feel the yes. I was back to like a 50-50. And so I meditated, and then I did some journaling, and I still was at 50-50. So I did a few different tools that actually helped me to land on the answer in a way that felt really true to me. And what I did, and that's what I want to share with you. So the first one is something called embodied decision making. And what you do is you write down on 2 pieces of paper what the options are. And, or in my case, I just wrote a yes for taking it or a no. And I folded up the pieces of paper and I put them down on the ground, and I stood next to each one. And when I was standing on the yes, I just really felt in my body, like, what would it be like to wake up here every morning? What would my daily life be like? And just really tried to get into my senses. What would it feel like? What are the smells? What are the sensations in my body? What does the day-to-day look like? And then I did the same for the no. And what surprised me was that I just felt more of a yes for the no. I just was feeling a little bit more leaning towards that. So that was the first clue. And then I did something called just like a coin flip. And of course, everyone knows to flip a coin to decide something. But the magic of a coin flip isn't in what the coin says. What it really is, and here's a coin, what it really is if you let heads be yes to the land, to the rental, and tails be no. What happens when I flip it, let me see here. So I flip it, and like a half a second before I even look at what it is, there's like an instant, like, I hope it's this, or I hope it's not this. And it can be subtle, but you can see that there's some part of you that it's really hoping that it's one way or another. And I noticed in doing that there was this just very subtle thing of like, I hope it's not it. And it kept surprising me because on theory and on paper, this is exactly what I'm wanting. And so I felt like I needed one more test. And so then I did muscle testing. And if you're not familiar with muscle testing, it's applied kinesiology. And the idea is that the muscles, like our body knows, our body is just this repository of deep, deep wisdom. And it's basically holding all of our subconscious. And so you can do it in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways is like a sway test. So if I'm standing, and I'll just do it sitting down, but I'll ask and say, show me yes. And the body will start to move forward a little bit. And then show me no. And the body sort of sways back. So then I test it. My name is Jennifer. It moves forward. My name is Sally. It moves back. And so I do a little bit of different testing with it and ask it questions that I know are yes or no. And then I go into the question. This property, saying yes to this property is in my highest good at this time. And I found myself going back. I was like, wow. And so I did it a couple different ways. I asked the question a couple of different ways, and it kept coming to no. And I did notice that the idea of saying no, actually, and I didn't understand it, but it felt like the right thing to do. So after all of those tests, I decided that it was a no for me. And I wrote her and I just told her, I loved the property and I wasn't getting a full yes. And so I wasn't going to move forward. And I felt, after I sent the text, I felt a little bit of FOMO. But I also felt relief. And that relief was stronger than the FOMO. And I realized that was actually my true answer. And so today, a day later, I feel really confident in the decision. And I'm finding all sorts of other really interesting and exciting things starting to pop up, possibly even involving travel again. So what I am learning is that I have just really changed from being someone who was so in my mind about everything I did and literally could spend all night staying up and just looping around the different possibilities and going back and forth and not sleeping, and then, being foggy the next day, and then doing a pros and cons list and then still not really knowing. And it feels really good to have other tools now that can guide me and direct me. And so I just wanted to share them with you. And I would love to hear if you've used any of these tools before, what kinds of things you do for making decisions, and any experience you have in this arena. All right, take care. I'll see you on the next one.